Welcome to Survivor's Paradise, happy hour edition.
Yeah. So usually we do our videos, we record them and then we upload them to YouTube. But today we thought it would be interesting if we streamed it and allowed for people to ask questions in real time as we're going along. So welcome. Welcome to session week number 3. Mhm. So I am Paula Ilochi.
And I am Shay Lorick.
And today we are going to talk about red flags. So, those things when you think back on it, you're like, ugh, you know what? I knew something was wrong, but I just didn't want to pay attention to it. That's what we're going to talk about today. So feel free if you have any questions, comments to comment, and I'll be looking at them and bringing them up if there are any questions. So let's get started.
Well, where is there to begin? Golly.
Red flags. What was your... So red flags when it relates to narcissistic abuse. Mine would be the moment I realized I was never asked, how was your day? Unless I prompted it. Like, unless I said, you didn't even ask how my day was. That was the moment I was like, thinking back on it, I was like, it sounds really minute and really simple. But if a person does not take the time to say, hey, how are you? How was your day? Tell me about your day. Even if they're not even really interested, it just feels good to know that someone potentially is interested in asking how your day was. But that's just kind of the beginning of the being self-absorbed. So I was immediately a therapist, with I didn't have anyone I could really confide in, but I felt good knowing that I could help. So that would probably be my first.
That,
I think that would probably be my first red flag.
that's deep. That's deep because I think you said it right away. And I think that's probably another red flag is the fact that you felt like, okay, well, I'm not getting necessarily what I need, but I can be all this person needs me to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You already started taking on that I can fix you
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
immediately, which is a red flag. Do
Yeah.
not think you can fix anyone. You don't even want to take that on. That's too much.
It is too much, and it's like, where does the give and take in a relationship coming in? You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think last week on the video we had talked about the fact that some of the traits are covert, which means they're hidden. And I think I messed that up last week because I said the person that you were dealing with was covert, but that person was really overt
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
was out in the open. He really displayed to you in kind of like in your face that he wasn't going to cooperate in a relationship, that he was going to treat you any type of way. And for mine, he said basically the same thing, but in an overt way, or I keep switching that in a covert way. So his was more a manipulation of, because he did all of those things, like how was your day, making sure that a lot of times that um, he gave the appearance that he was doing all the right things, but at the end of the day, it was like in the background, all these other things are happening.
Right.
So
Right. I'm glad you said that because one thing about the red flag that it's there, right, which is why they call it a red flag, but it's not always there. So
mm,
it's easy to psych yourself out and say, okay, well, am I self-absorbed because I think that someone should ask me how my day is? Am
right,
I self-absorbed in that I think that a person should call me X amount of times or whatever it is? So
right,
because it's a very quick, fleeting moment in time, did that just happen situation? It's easy to kind of look past it.
right.
So, but here's the thing that I learned, and Shay, you can chime in as well too. Uh, for that narcissist, abuser, what have you, that's their like measurement of how much BS they can get away with.
Exactly.
Because I don't want to believe that they're not aware, that they're not asking these questions, or they're not in tune, or they're not empathetic.
Well, yeah, they don't want to have that appearance, I think. But at the end of the day, that is the hallmark of narcissistic personality disorder. I can't talk right now.
Is
Is
that
that
margarita kicking in
lack
already?
of empathy. So what?
Is the margarita kicking in already?
Girl, I'm not usually like, yeah. So the hallmark of it is the lack of empathy. But again, they try to wear the mask when they need to wear it. And then for some, the mask is only for the beginning of the relationship, and then it goes out the door.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is absolutely right. So what was your first red flag?
You're gonna make me talk about this again. I think, boy, I'm trying to think of like the very first encounter. I think I had talked about this in our first video, is that it was the love bombing.
Mm.
And I think, and young women, we really need to pay attention, younger than us, need to pay attention to this, because a lot of times we're dealing with our childhood traumas as we're looking for love. We're dealing with, for me, I had been divorced before, so I was dealing with that trauma. And I think that was a perfect storm for, you know, the desire to want to be loved and the desire to love of that person coming into my life and showing me, okay, I'm giving you all this attention, I'm chasing you, I'm, you know, spending all my time with you, I'm here with you, let's get together, let's be exclusive, and all those different things, not realizing in my head, like, this is way too fast.
Yeah, way too fast, way too much, too soon.
Exactly. You know, I didn't know this person, and even though, hey, Tiffany, even
Oh,
though,
you can see. Okay.
you know, we kind of knew of each other, church is a big thing. So in Kansas City, church is a huge thing. Everybody knows everybody, even if you don't go to the same church, like, you still kind of know that family or that they're friends or mutual friends. And so it's like, okay, well, I don't know this person, but I kind of know him. I know people that know him. So maybe it's okay. And so you kind of rush in, and not even that, it's like you're not even making conscious decisions. It's like this person is kind of giving you these ideas, planting ideas in your head, or, you know, kind of like, oh, we should do this. And you're like, your gut is telling you, no, you shouldn't do this. But you overstep that thinking, okay, well, maybe this is going to be okay.
Right, right.
And then, so that in and of itself is one that you would really kind of just look over, because you're like, okay, well, maybe he's chasing me, he's giving me this thrill. The meeting ID, can you see us? You don't get to join the actual meeting, but you can, you can you guys see and hear us? And if you like, you can comment, ask questions. But we're not bringing you in.
Free to ask questions. Well, I'll restate your question and ask it for you. But that might be something to consider too, maybe as we move forward, if people want to.
Yeah, Stephen, we can bring you
questions and join in on it. That's something to consider.
Okay. So, hey, Kendall.
So you said something that is really interesting, and it is a bit.
Open this door because you see I'm so blushed. Oh, blah blah blah. Oh, look, we're not letting you in on this.
I see you guys. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free. If you have a statement, if you want to share a red flag that you think that other people can benefit from, feel free to jump in. But Shay, you talked something about church. And I know that can be kind of.
What? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just going to make a disclaimer. This is my Rona look, and I'm red, I'm blotched, but that's because of this big light. I got that studio light shining, so don't y'all screenshot me and all that. All right, go ahead.
Y'all, the drinks must be. You don't have to do a disclaimer, but that is something interesting. You talked about church and feeling like, okay, did that play a role at all?
Which part?
You mentioned that church played a role in you met the person in church, or maybe not, but just saying, if you were to go to someone for advice, and but I'm thinking more so on marriage, do you think that plays a role at all in why people might choose to stay with someone who's exhibiting red flags time and time and time again? And it's just an opinion. It's just something that,
like, that was my biggest thing.
I'd love to hear from you guys too. Yes, is it Steven? Stefan?
That's my classmate from high school.
All right, get yourself a red Solo cup. I love that.
So
Yeah, we gotta make the best of this. We can make this fun.
we're classy. We don't even have those here, I don't think. But anyway, no, absolutely, it absolutely was at first. For the first couple of years, it was that was part of it. There's many layers to that, because normally in these types of relationships, the person is very intimidating, so they threaten that if you do leave, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But part of it is, yes, they play on that empathy of, they know you're religious, they know that you have been raised and socialized to be a wife. So in regard to church, that means that, you know, you might be socialized to pray for your husband, to stand on your marriage, to you know, forgive, to labor with them, to do all these different things, rather than just give up on your marriage.
Right.
Yeah, but
you're forced to carry that burden in a sense.
that might work for a normal relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But what hindsight has told you and I and many other people in this situation is that that does not work for toxic, personality disordered individuals.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I know that people haven't seen our other, our other videos where we've kind of educated on what these traits are. There are specific criteria, and we're not just talking about, somebody that's doing, things and they need to grow up or they need more emotional intelligence. We're talking about a full criteria that's met for a personality disorder that comes out in these behaviors that are frankly unbearable, and they are built to destroy entire lives.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just thinking about the red flags, I know a lot of times for people who are dealing with someone who exhibits narcissistic behavior, what they typically try to do is get you all in immediately, because they can't wear that mask for a very, very long time.
Right.
So if I can get you in, that's why, have you guys, and I'm gonna ask you guys a question out there who are tuning in, have you had friends, maybe family, whoever, maybe you, who you meet someone and then things seem to be going so well, almost like too well, and then they want to marry you within maybe 6 months, and you're thinking in your head, like, I can't get so-and-so to commit, and we've been on and off for about 5 years, so let me just jump on this train. But it's usually people like this, it's like they can sense out a person who is like, I want to be married, I want a relationship, I want this, So all the love bombing they give you, the showering you with gifts, and I love you, and I'm calling you all day, all night. And, for me, when you get calls all the time, if I just came from a relationship with infidelity and you're calling me all the time, in my mind, I'm saying, well, how do you have time to cheat?
Right.
But in your head, you start to justify stuff. And then you're like, oh, wow, I know more about this person than I've ever known about anyone else in like 3 or 4 years of knowing them.
Right.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to go ahead and get married.
Right. And for me, it wasn't even that. It was just like, But I guess in the grand scheme of things, because it was like 10 months that I eventually did say, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. But it was like, so when mental health having been so foreign to our community, it's not a joint effort to heal all past trauma together in marriage.
You want to read that?
So yeah, I'm going to answer this real fast, and then I'm going to get to your question, because that's a great question, Stephan. For me, I was all along like calling these things out and saying, I don't like you're doing this, I don't like you're doing that. And so I actually removed myself from that person. But kind of like Stephan is talking about, this was even before I was married. If you're in a normal situation and somebody comes back and apologizes and says, this is not me, I want to change for you, I want us to be together, so I'm going to get rid of everybody and I'm going to do this and that, then you're like, okay, well, maybe I should give this person a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was like, okay, I let this person go. They did that very thing. And then it was all good because they were able to wear that mask for many months until they weren't anymore. And I think that kind of segues me into what Stephan is talking about, is absolutely when you're dealing with a normal mental health disorder. So I'm talking about depression, anxiety, but not necessarily bipolar disorder, but bipolar disorder. Those are emotional problems. That is different from a personality disorder. And I'm a therapist, so I can talk to you in depth about this, probably not in this forum necessarily, but I will say that a personality disorder is not curable. And most times a person with antisocial personality disorder, think of serial killer, think of predators, think of people that really don't deserve to be in society. But narcissistic personality disorder, and those personality disorders cannot be cured. And most times people with narcissistic personality disorder do not go seeking help. While we're doing this, I may try to bring up the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder just so that you can see it. We talked about it in our last video, and we'll try to get that up as soon as possible. But they often do not go in for help. And so because they have a sense of grandiosity, that they're okay, that they're perfect on the outside, so they wouldn't necessarily be diagnosed with anything. It's a very hidden type thing because these people are very charismatic, so you might see them in leadership roles. I think the biggest
We're going to see them in leadership role.
Oh, right. What they would know was Donald Trump. So if you could think of that on a smaller scale, you could look at, even in churches, some of the leaders in churches can, I'm sure if we were to sit down with them and kind of look at the criteria and compare that, would be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. So this is not something that's curable, because most times those people are not going to go in for help, and they're not going to admit that they have a problem.
Right. And I'm going to put this in perspective as well, just coming from my background, doing behavioral health, working as a counselor for domestic violence victims, soldiers and families in the Army. One thing I noticed is that people would be, high ranking, and the first thing that people said, even when their spouses would come in and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, but I don't know what to do because my spouse, whoever, is a major. My spouse is a high-ranking official. So a lot of times people, because you get to that, I'm be careful how I say this, a lot of them get to the level of power because of the charismatic traits that can come with being a narcissistic person. So yeah, those traits are terrible when you're using it for manipulation and things like that. But when you're trying to get to that top, it kind of,
they're desirable traits.
Right.
When you want to be political, or you want to get to the top, or you want somebody that's driven, or that's motivated, or that wants to play the game of politics, those are desirable traits.
And it intimidates you because for someone who is a spouse or dealing with that, they'll make you feel crazy. No one's going to believe you. No one's going to think I'm doing anything. Look how well they're usually doing very well in their career. Um, a great soldier, a great teacher, a great pastor, leader, whatever. They excel outside of that usually. So you see that. So if you come out and say, hey, I'm being abused, it's going to be kind of, well, what did you do? Or um, are you being sensitive, or or that kind of stuff. And then if you're the part of what a narcissist does anyways makes you feel like you're crazy. So you're not getting that support from family sometimes, their family sometimes, people who've met them. So it's a psychological mess.
And what we're talking about here is also the abuse part of it. Not every person with narcissistic personality disorder is abusive. I think any diagnosis that we talk about comes on a range. So you can have somebody with narcissistic personality disorder that is mild and not necessarily abusive, but they have trouble in relationships, definitely because of the traits that come along with it. I don't know if you guys can see the screen share that I'm giving you right now. I'm trying to blow it up a little bit, but it'll just give you a better idea of what we're talking about when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder. And it's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity. So pervasive means that that's basically the idea that it is ongoing and there's not a cure for it. And not only is there not a cure for it, but it gets worse as the person ages. So basically they perfect the personality disorder becomes perfected as they get older. So it's marked by a pattern of grandiosity, either in fantasy or either they have a perceived sense of grandiosity, like they're better than everybody, they can do no wrong, or it's in their behavior. A need for admiration and a lack of empathy. That is the hallmark. When you lack empathy, you have no care in the world about anybody else. And so every behavior that you can observe from these people are a means to an end. People are a means to an end. Lack of empathy means that you do not love anybody. You cannot love anybody. Whatever brain chemical or brain chemistry in it that causes love to occur between people, they do not have. And no, we're not talking about personality. So when we talk, Steph, and I see your question, when we talk about personality, we're talking about, oh, they're nice, they're caring, they're this. I'm talking about a personality disorder. This is a pattern of behavior. And so that's why I'm showing you on the screenshot that there's 9 different criteria. And yes, we are all born with things. We're not perfect. We are all born with things and traits that are not healthy. But when you're talking about a personality disorder, you're talking about a pattern of behavior. Like I said, 9 of these criteria. A person with personality disorder has to meet 5 of the 9 criteria in order to meet that disorder. And so the result of these different things, so you're talking about grandiose sense of self-importance, you're talking about preoccupation with unlimited success, power, brilliance. You're talking about belief that he or she is special or unique. Number 4 is requires excessive admiration. Number 5 is a sense of self-entitlement. Number 6 is interpersonally exploitative, so it takes advantage of other people. Number 7, lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings or needs of others. Number 8 is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. Or number 9 shows haughty behaviors or attitudes. Now, you might look on there and say, well, I've done that. Yes, we might have done 1 or 2 of those. But if you are a personality disordered person, you're going to, like I said, you're going to meet 5 of the 9 together. And you're just looking at words. You're basically just looking at a criteria here. This criteria manifests itself in different ways. And that's what we're talking about here is the red flags. When you come in relationship with these types of people, it is very difficult to have meaningful and healthy relationships with somebody that is exhibiting all of these things. And so they do anything to continue to exhibit these because they cannot help it. They do not have the mechanism that most people have to be able to engage otherwise. And so it comes out in psychological abuse, manipulation, it comes out in cheating because of the sense of admiration. They constantly are cheating or engaged in pornography or so there's all kinds of different things. There's gaslighting, there's lying, pervasive lying. There's, come on in, Paula.
And I'll even say I've seen people in relationships who've been cheated on and they came back stronger. But that doesn't happen with the narcissist.
Yeah.
With a narcissist, you get cheated on and it's on you because it's your fault. It's your fault I cheated on you. And somehow it'll manipulate your way into thinking, what can I do differently to keep you home? And there's nothing you can ever do. And I think that's the biggest one that sticks out to me when I see the lack of empathy, because if you cheat on someone you care about, you love, we're human, right? Let's say something happens and you say, I'm sorry. 9 out of 10 times, like, you probably really mean you're sorry. And the best apology is change behavior. So you're not going to do that again. So if 2 months down the line, you did the exact same thing, but you managed to be a bit more secretive about it, and I find out about it and you get angry because I'm mad because you betrayed my trust again, you're more than likely a narcissist, because there is no, you're not genuinely sorry about that. And I'm muted, my baby's crying.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Get them if you need to. And then we also need to talk about the fact that there's a grooming process that occurs. So when I was talking in the beginning about like the love bombing, which love bombing is like, oh, I love you, we need to, hurry into this relationship. We need, I'm chasing after you. You feel like, oh, this person really likes me. This person wants to be involved with me. But in normal relationships, I believe that it doesn't happen or shouldn't happen that quickly. And so that's sometimes a red flag that people miss. And so then you're groomed to begin to trust this person. And even though you see red flags, you're wanting to give them, opportunities to, apologize or whatever. But then it's like for that person, and this is a lot of this is in hindsight, they were testing you to see how far they could push the limits to find out if you would forgive them or if you would still remain in the relationship with them. And then as you continue to be in relationship with them and start to express that you don't want to continue because of the things that they're doing, that's when they start to intimidate and control and threaten and use all kinds of different tactics to keep you in the relationship. And so that's when we bring in the cycle of violence. And it may not necessarily be physical, it can be physical, but it's mostly the psychological abuse that is.
It's devastating. It's devastating. And it's, and it's more than just, we all make mistakes, because marriage is hard, relationships can be difficult, we all make mistakes. But if you genuinely care about someone, you will not spend your time trying to control them through manipulation, through, I'm gonna say I love you while I'm stabbing you. It's not love. Love doesn't hurt. So I think that's something when I would see my clients, and it would be weird things, like, it's the whole idea of like thinking you're crazy, like the whole crazy making thing. I don't know if you guys have seen Invisible Man, but that right there, and I know I've said this in my last video, that is the epitome of narcissistic behavior. And I'm not going to do any spoilers if you haven't seen it, but go check it out. But the idea that you feel all the stuff that's happening, and if it's not a physical abuse, it's invisible. Those invisible scars, right? So the idea of like, I just happened to look at my phone and my texts are deleted. I could have sworn that I texted my mom yesterday about this. Or, I feel like I have a tracker on my car. and people will look at you like you're paranoid, something's wrong with you, but based on what your interactions have been with the abuser or the person who is exhibiting this behavior is very intentional, and it's very it's enough to make you question yourself. And if you have children involved, it can play a role when it comes to custody, when it comes to, because they're calm and collected and they're cool and I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know what their issue is. I never did X, Y, and Z. Call this person, ask this person, because they start grooming other people around you to devalue you and devalue what they've put you through. And I always say, you know, we talk about this all the time, Shay, you come out of that situation and you don't even know the depth of the damage until you're fully removed. Even for me, there are times I didn't even know, and we joke about this, and Shay's so sweet, I would always say the same thing over and over. And instead of her telling me, you know, you've already said this, she's like, okay, But one thing I didn't realize is that I was experiencing memory loss, post, you know, PTSD,
Because
memory loss.
after of being placed on a pedestal, so that's part of it. So we talked about the love bombing. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. And then once they get you and they've earned your trust and everything, the minute you do not do what they want you to do, or the minute that you are not perfect, or the minute that, you know, you don't forgive them for cheating or lying or doing whatever they're doing, that's when the discard comes. So they begin to devalue you. They begin to intimidate you. They begin to threaten you. And so it's that up and down. And then in order to keep you, they're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to get help. I'm going to go to counseling. Okay. And then you say, okay, I'm going to forgive you. And then it's that repeated. So your mind goes into fight or flight mode. And so just imagine being in fear and then down. And so many of you have been through traumatic situations. Some of you have been in domestic violence situations. Some of you have been in the military. So you've been in war-like situations. Some of you have been, you know, on the verge of death. You had car accidents. These are traumas. And so when you're talking about being the victim of narcissistic abuse, this is an ongoing trauma. So whether you've been in a relationship for 1 year or 9 years or 20 years, that plays on the centers of your brain. And so it causes, even after the fact, you to exhibit PTSD-like symptoms, or what some people are now calling complex PTSD, which what Paula is talking about is that part of that is memory loss. Part of that is anxiety. Part of that is having nightmares. Part of that is being depressed, being on the verge of suicide. Part of that is having flashbacks or replaying, you know, memories that replay over and over about what has happened. Part of that is just a horrific. We could lay on the screen the criteria for PTSD, and many people that have been involved in this type of abuse would be able to identify with the result of being in this type of relationship. And so it's really chronic. It's really insidious. That's what I want to say. It's really insidious because on the outside, everything looks perfect. And I think, Paula, when you reached out to me because you had some sense of, you know, what's going on with her, you asked me the question, or you said to me, like, I would never guess that is something that you were experiencing. And you were also experiencing that, and I had no idea. And so that just shows you how that sense of grandiosity, because these people like to have the appearance that everything is okay. And so as a victim, you also keep that appearance because of your codependency, but also because you're fearful. You're
constantly managing them. I put on my clothes every morning and went into the office to manage other people's domestic violence situations. And then I was going home to my own. So it's like I had all the education, the background, everything you can think of, and I still justified why mine was slightly different. So it's that mental hold. That mental hold is something else. And I know in my situation too, it was mental, it was like spiritual. It was, you know, the pastors telling me, well, you know, the devil's attacking marriage, and I'm not saying anything against that, but it's like, but not listening to what's happening, you know, like, okay, so how do we move forward? How can we use the word to also put action into, you know, faith without action is dead. So what can we do? Like, it's always like using a certain part, and the onus is typically on the women.
But then again,
Pray and
like,
figure it out and come around.
we're having this conversation thinking that most people aren't like this.
Right.
So
you're right. That's a good point.
I think in the church, we have to educate on the fact that there are some extremely disordered people that this does not apply to. You do not encourage a woman or a man, because men also deal with narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, to stay in a relationship with someone that cannot be cured.
Yeah.
So the advice and the recommendation is always to run, is to get out, because this is not going to get better. But because we are so uneducated, and even like we both work in the field, and we did not understand what was happening to us until we understood what was happening to us. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I remember getting to the point where I had told myself that this was it. I was like, I'm just going to be unhappy for the rest of my life. That is a crazy realization, and I'm 34. Like, if I live to be even 70 or 75, that is a long time to be unhappy. So it's something to definitely, from the outside looking in, you can be like, oh man, this was a stronghold. This was definitely a back and forth that, had I not just, you know, got out of it, I would still be in it. You have to run. You cannot even allow that person. So we're in the whole quarantine. I'm gonna bring it back to what's happening right now. So we're quarantined. We are in the house, maybe walking around the house, whatever you're doing for your health. This is a prime time for that person to get back in. This is the prime time for that person to, hey, I've been thinking about you. Are you well? How are you doing? How you feeling? Because they're not always bad. They're not always bad. And that's what keeps us with them. They have their good moments, right?
I beg to disagree.
Really? Go ahead.
Disagree.
Okay.
Wear masks, people. You have to understand, they wear masks. So when you're talking about a person with personality disorder, they are soulless. That's what a lack of empathy.
Yes.
I want to put it to you in terms.
And I'm still healing, so that's good. I'm glad you brought that up.
They are soulless.
Because I don't think I want to believe that the person that you love was always bad. You don't want to believe that.
Believe it. Who wants to believe that somebody that you were with, you had children with, that whatever, is evil and depraved and all of these different things? And so personality disordered people do not have narcissistic personality and antisocial personality, because there's other personality disorders, do not have souls. A malicious narcissist does not. And so when you're dealing with the nice part, the love bombing or the hoovering is what they call it, and you can look that up. Like, those are masks. And they only can wear them for a limited time. So and you can always test them, because if they're wearing a mask, they're being nice, do something, set a boundary, say no, and see what happens. It slips right off, and they're back calling you whatever, manipulating you, intimidating you, threatening you, devaluing you. You know, I've been told, like, that's why your mom died. Like, who in the world would,
I'm gonna take a sip on that.
That doesn't make sense. So the mask, the niceness, is not real. It's a game. It's a mimic. They're mimicking who you are. And so really you're in love with the reflection of yourself, who you want them to be.
Y'all hear that? That's the word right there. You should put that on a t-shirt.
Don't play. You're in love with who you wanted to be.
Wow.
which is yourself. You are a reflection. So everything that you are, that you were looking for, is really within, but you were looking for it in somebody else who saw that and capitalized on that.
That's deep.
So at the end of the day, you're trauma bonded. Everybody's heard of Stockholm syndrome. And it is the effect of, like, when usually it came from back in the, I don't know, 70s, when some chick was kidnapped.
Right.
In Stockholm, Sweden. And they had rescued her, and she was like, she had been with the
Shay's on.
for so long, she liked him. She began to identify because he was nice. He gave her crumbs every so often. Yeah, I kidnapped you, but I'm taking good care of you. I've stolen you from your whole life. I've destroyed your whole life. But here's some good things, to keep you. I'm going to abuse you tomorrow, but then I'm going to apologize to you and make everything okay. And so they continue to crazy make, which creates that trauma bond. So so it becomes an addiction. A trauma bond is equal to an addiction. So when we talk about people being addicted to alcohol and they can't, like, I'm also an addiction counselor, so I understand how that works. When I work with people, I don't expect them necessarily to go cold turkey, because I understand that there's psychological mechanisms that keep them, not just a habit, there's psychological mechanisms inside the brain that keeps them tied to alcohol.
Right.
So that's why they have to detox. They have to get it out of their system. And this is the same idea when we're talking about needing to get out of a toxic relationship.
This is good.
To go no contact. And I'm gonna look straight in the camera. Go no contact, bro.
Yes.
Go no contact, sis. Because if you don't, you're gonna continue to be bonded to this person. And you're gonna continue to go back. What is it? You're the domestic violence specialist. What is it? They go back 7 times?
Yep. On average, 7 times for domestic violence. And then domestic violence, typically, you're not always dealing with the narcissist personality disorder. So it's a very different person you're dealing with. So this is such good information you're giving us and giving me, because I'm still going through, different things. So it's so important that you made that, you deciphered that difference between that narcissistic person never being a good person versus someone who might be experiencing DV, domestic violence, and that person is just a hurt person who's still hurting people. But there is hope.
I've seen those people change.
I've seen them back.
Right now that I have male clients that have been abusive.
Yep.
And they have changed. I have watched them over time no longer engage in physical abuse of their spouse.
And those are people who therapy will work for.
Right.
Therapy doesn't work. And I'm saying this out loud, even as I'm still learning about this disorder, because therapy does not work for a narcissist.
No.
They're the type of person who will go to therapy and end up friends with their therapist.
That they'll end up making the therapist upset, because I've seen that firsthand. Like, they begin to manipulate the therapist, or they begin to gaslight the therapist, or to call the therapist out, really verbally or emotionally abuse a therapist. And so if you're not trained, that's okay, he can be in it. If you're not trained specifically, like basically working probably in a prison, you would need to have a criminal justice background, and still you are not going to be able to cure this kind of person, because they think they're better and smarter than you, because they have to think that in order to be able to manipulate so many different people. Tiffany, hey girl, are people born with, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Well, so let me say this. I believe that they are. I think that they are predisposed to it, but I also think it comes from being abused.
Yeah.
And so this could be a mixture of that. Also, a lot of the research says that people that are put on a pedestal as a child can also display traits of narcissistic personality disorder. So you kind of have that dual category of people that have been abused in their childhood, on the other hand, there are some people that haven't been abused, but they've been put on this pedestal of, you know, being the best thing that ever happened to their parents, to the effect that both can grow up to exhibit these traits. So that's a really good question. That's a really good question. But I also think that studies have shown that some people, especially malignant, so when we talk about malignant narcissists or psychopathic people that, you know, abuse or are predators or murder people, serial killers and things like that, that they have something missing, and I can't remember the part of the brain that's missing, that literally most of us have, that are able to have empathy and love other people. They don't have that. So in that sense, then they are born. But yeah, it's whatever, whether they're born or made, you cannot stay, because and I'm glad you brought up that point, Paula, because of the fact that they cannot be rehabilitated. You're just going to keep going to this spiral with them, and it's going to get worse.
I promise you, if you ask anyone that they've ever been with, they have a negative story about it.
Don't even. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that can be in hindsight as well, because
and that's if they share it with you, because a lot of times they'll pretend. In my case, they suddenly they had memory loss, so they can tell you any story about anyone they've been with. That's a red flag.
Or they say the person was terrible, the person that they were with before was crazy.
Yeah, everyone's crazy, everyone's a stalker. There's a lot of projection with these people. There's a lot of everything that they experience, they put on you. So you're a bad parent, you're abusive, you're controlling, you're jealous. It's all projection.
And so when you leave them, when you do the discard, that is an injury to the narcissist, because they weren't the one that left you, or, you know, whatever. Yeah, in the frontal lobe, it's somewhere in the frontal lobe, definitely, Tiffany. And so they begin to do what we call the smear campaign. So after they leave you, they may be trying to get you back, but they're telling everybody else around you or around them that you're the bad person, you're this or that, you're no good, you're crazy and all that, so that they can triangulate people against you. And that's how the abuse continues, because while you're trying to heal, going through whatever you're going through from this terror, because the healing also is not the same as just any breakup. The healing is horrendous. The healing is horrific, because again, you're going through that PTSD.
Yeah.
And so while you're trying to do that, they're harassing you, they're sending you messages, they're creating accounts to try to, you know, either get you back, intimidate you, and then that goes back and forth. So they're still doing the devalue and discard, the devalue and love bombing, trying to get you back.
Because a narcissist always returns to the scene of the crime. So they're not done with you until they say they're done with you.
Until they say they're done.
Right.
And because you were done with them, that's not okay.
That's not enough.
You don't control them. And so when you go silent, that makes them like crazy. So in the meantime, while they're doing that with you, on the outside, they're making you, you know, everything but a child of God.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, I'm in and out muting because he woke up from his nap.
Okay.
But no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that's the hard part about, because typically in the average relationship, you break up and you have a chance to heal. You know, the person knows, hey, I messed up. I did something that was messed up. I get why you're upset with them. Not so with the narcissist. They don't want you to have that time to yourself, because they don't ever want you to fully recover. Because they don't, it's that narc injury, that whole idea of, they know they do bad things, but they don't want to be told they do bad things. So they justify it by putting that on you, putting that blame on you.
It's like a death to them to hear that they are doing something wrong.
Right.
Like, that was the constant, like, thing I would hear all the time. You think I'm a bad person. So you talked about those projections. I haven't even ever uttered that to anybody. You think I'm a bad
They think you know what you're thinking.
You think I'm this. So that's, you can tell that defense mechanism is projection. So they're projecting what they feel about themselves really on the inside onto you.
They absolutely walk in denial.
Yeah. I'm going to answer another question. Z, you said, for me, it was a silence after questions. That's a big one for a lot of people. For me, that I didn't get a lot of the silent treatment, but I think, Paula, you talked about that.
Did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely got the silent treatment. I got the silent treatment in our own home. So it was, I'm gonna go to another bedroom, I'm gonna shut the door, lock it, and the only time you're gonna hear from me is if I text you. So I'm not gonna physically talk to you. That was kind of my silent treatment. It wouldn't be words. It would be check your email, check your phone, and they would that kind of game. And you're sitting there talking to them like, why don't you just tell me what's wrong, what's going on, what's happening? And they're like, check your text. That's like, so the average person in an argument, that's not, especially an argument about you cheating on me or an argument about me finding out you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, turns into you giving me the silent treatment. So it's like you're punished for their wrongdoing because you're upset.
Apostle Robertson, you said, so you're saying they walk in denial. What did we say, Paula? Lie, lie,
90% is a lie, 10% is a fabricated truth. It's all a lie.
You will never hear the truth. It's always a lie. Everything is a lie. Their whole existence, first of all, their whole existence is a lie.
Yep.
So you can confront them and say, I have proof. And until they see that in black and white, they will deny. And even when they see it in black and white, they will say,
deny it.
Yeah, but that's not really what happened. Let me tell you what really happened. And then years later, they'll keep, because they like that attention of talking about what they did. So they'll tell you more of the truth when they're telling you to you years later, where you're already forgiving them for it. So you're like, what the heck? Like, I knew. So your gut told you, your intuition told you that they had did this or that, but then they go back and they are so manipulative.
Well, yeah, what Radiant One Speaks said, you wouldn't understand. That's absolutely it. My main thing was always, you show them that black and white and they're like, see, you don't know the whole story.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, this is enough of the story that I don't like. I don't care what else is on that story.
We can call them right now, knowing you're not going to agree.
Exactly. I'm going to call what they didn't. Okay, I'm going to admit my wrong, but what this person didn't say, they start dividing that other person and you're like.
But last week you stepped on my toe, so let's talk about that instead.
Listen, I was so.
You had a harem of women. That does not.
I was so deep into it that I justified the wrong by saying, well, I guess I was mad at you last week about something.
Yeah.
So I can see, no, there's nothing you can do to deserve being mistreated. I don't care.
Nothing.
Stabbing someone's mom or something. I know that's like extreme, but it's like, I promise you didn't do anything to deserve what was done to you. And they'll figure out a way to, I was even called self-righteous.
All the time.
Never cheated on anyone. Are we really going here? Are we really?
Well, and you talk about that a lot, is how they use religion. So even, because I know you said the individual that you were dealing with constantly used the Bible and stuff against you. And I experienced that same thing, even when that person eventually told me they didn't even believe. They kept using it against me to keep me in order, to have control over me. And so they use almost anything to keep you under your thumb.
Same. I'm told that in biblical days, men have multiple women, multiple wives. So why am I upset with that? Or that would make them happier if we went back to biblical times and did that. And I'm like, well, in the Bible days, the men also took care of their wives. So are we picking and choosing what we want to do?
So we go back to the fact he was out loud. He was overt with his. So look at overt narcissist, covert narcissist. So
independent, yes. Ooh, I heard that.
Deny. And I'm calling him out, like, you're this, you're that, you're doing this, you're doing that. And they wanted this appearance that, no, I'm not doing any of that. And you just don't forgive me. You're holding the past against me. You think I haven't changed. You know, it's your
Oh,
fault.
and forgiveness for a narcissist is like a 1 week. I don't know what it was for you, but for me, I had a week or two, and I better get over it. So you don't get a chance to even grieve what you're sad about. And that was I was once told I was too independent, too much of a man. People have just said that. I was told the same thing.
That you were a man?
I was too independent. Yep.
Yeah.
Too much of a man.
You
don't even got to put a name to it.
Mine was you act like a nigga.
Woo.
Oh, I see that Z said that. Yeah, exactly. Kim, hey Kim, I was once told I was too independent. Yep, too much. Exactly.
Too independent. In other words, that means you're too difficult to control.
Oh yeah.
That's all that means.
The irony of it is that this person never had a lot of male friends because they were extremely intimidated by men.
Yep.
But they had all kinds of female friends, and they were like adamant that they needed to have friends, but they had to be females, of course. And then when you try to encourage them, you know, you don't have many friends, you don't hang out with people, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I don't get along with men. And I can remember times like if they did finally get friends that were male or they would be around, and they would be around, if I would like interact or laugh at something somebody said, I would get that stare. And many people talk about this glare that the narcissists have. It's this glare, it's this like stare as if they will want to choke the mess out of you. Like they will kill you on sight, basically.
In your face, everything. Very intimidating.
Yeah. And so it was just like they were very intimidated by other men.
I laughed at someone's joke, and I didn't hear about that for weeks. I laughed at someone's joke.
And it's
you're flirting.
Yeah, exactly, Kim.
Always flirting.
We're flirting. But again, it goes back to that projection because they're constantly doing these things. So if you don't have to be doing any, and they know you're not doing anything because you're always at home, you're always with them because they demand that. And it's like, you know, I'm not doing this, but because their inner being is doing all these different things on the outside, all on Instagram, Facebook, and we won't even talk about that. They always project that onto other people. Hey, Tina.
Wow, can never talk or make eye contact with a man.
Huh?
Someone commented, could never talk or make eye contact with a man.
Right.
I remember in church and I was in worship and I was worshiping as it was a young man who was singing and I was, you know, it was great. It was great worship. And he stared at me like, and brought that up. I said, so I can't even praise and work. Like what, when that feeling of feeling trapped is so unreal. It's like, you don't have the freedom to worship, but you use church to justify what you're doing. I don't have the freedom to go hang out with my friends or anything, but you tell me that I never stop you from going, but you won't watch the kids. You know what I mean? So it's like that whole back and forth. You know, I never said you couldn't, but you make it so impossible for me to do anything to make me happy.
And so you walk on eggshells and you start not doing anything. Like there's so many things that I stopped doing just so I wouldn't hear, because I would be out, you know, for 30 minutes with a friend at coffee. And he's texting me already. When are you coming back? You said you were coming back at 5:03 and it's 5:02 and you're not here. And you tell me a time and then you don't follow through with it and blah, blah, blah. And I could have the kids with me. I could, you know, be down the street, everything. And so most times he would go everywhere with me. Like I couldn't go anywhere by myself. And so towards the end, I just started like doing me. I just started like going, get my nails done and trying to push through that whole emotional connection of like being intimidated every time he would text me. I would just like put my phone in my purse or whatever on silent and just say, I'm gonna just deal with it when I get there because I know it's gonna be something or whatever. But it became a chore to do anything. And so I think that's when depression starts to set in for us as well, because I spent a lot of time in my room. It was like, just to not only to get away from him, but just to get away from it. And then that's when you talk about being stuck. Like you feel like you're never gonna get out. And for me, I have a career. I won't say that on camera right now, but you already know, a lot of people know the story of me. And so, I have done a lot of things in my life as far as success. And so to be in a position where you have this person like draining the life out of you, like you don't even want to go to work half the time. You can't interact with your children.
You wake up tired. You're always tired.
Yeah, you're always tired. Like you're laughing with your children. That's something like it's, you can't do anything. And so life just becomes a chore, and you just eventually you just want to escape. You just,
yeah.
Like, I don't think I'll ever get out of this, because every time you say, I want a divorce, I want to separate, then it's, I'm going to take your children from you. And because you've been so beat down for years and years and years, in your mind, you're like, oh my God, he's going to take my children.
I became obsessed with finding evidence to prove that I was being abused.
Ooh.
It became an obsession, because at one point I remember saying, well, he never hit me and I never called the police. How am I going to justify all the psychological things that have happened? Who's going to believe me? And you start to, and then one day I had a friend say to me, Paula, you don't have to justify anything. Everything you just told me is more than enough. And just hearing that affirmation from someone else was like, I had to, and I began to rebuild myself. I began to go to therapy, counseling, you got to figure out who you are, because you lose so much of yourself in the person. And the more prolonged you interact with them, the worse it is. Some people don't recover. Some people unfortunately can commit suicide, take their life. It's a very difficult process, but they attached themselves to you because there was something in you they did not have. And if in your case that was strength, that strength never left. I remember being told, I married Paula, the go-getter. Now you're a crutch. Well, here's the thing. Once I got out, that go-getter never left. So who you are never leaves, and you come back and you're like, okay, you forgot. You must not know about me, in the words of Beyonce. You come back, but unfortunately everyone can't. And that's why we created the YouTube channel, our Instagram, our businesses, everything, because we're like, there are other people dealing with this, no matter your socioeconomic background, your education level. I don't care what your color, where you came from. Anyone can be a target.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have something going for yourself.
Absolutely. And because you are that go-getter, that person, you feel like, okay, I can reach down, I can help this person. I see their potential. I see, what they could be. Never go off of potential. Let me just say,
don't reach down. I mean,
it's not real.
People, but
I help people in my job all the time. Like in my work, I'm a social worker, I'm a therapist. Like that's right. I need to channel that, not with a man, not in a relationship.
There's something in you that'll tell you this don't feel right. I promise you, everyone has it. There is something in you, you can't put your finger on it, but you're like, I'm not feeling, something is not aligning, our spirits aren't jiving. It's just some type of friction.
Yep.
Believe that. That's your inner spirit, that's your inner self telling you, run. It's not safe. That's your protection. Don't quiet that voice. And
absolutely.
That's the hard way.
Absolutely. I want to read some of the comments.
Okay.
They know very well this. Yeah, absolutely. They know exactly what they're doing. Like this stuff, even though it's a disorder, and you can see it in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychological Disorders, that does not mean that they're not purposely doing these things. Like these are mechanisms designed to destroy you, not to just like mess you up a little bit, or like to destroy you,
take you down.
Exactly. And they work. So like you said, like some people don't make it out. And I was talking to this person's ex, one of the person's exes, and they were, this is when I was like, this 6 months ago, when I was at my lowest I've ever been in my life. Never had any of these issues. Like the lowest I've ever been in my life. And my family knows, my friends know, Kelly, like the lowest I've ever been. And their ex was telling me that, you know, for me to be, like, I had to miss work some, but she was like, you went to work today. You did a good job. Because, you know, it's been, what, 11 years or whatever, 10 years since they were out, 8 years, 9 years since they weren't married. And she's still suffering from what this person did to her to this day. Like, we need that meme with that boxer, to this day. That is deep. That is deep. I mean, and we were talking, I did not realize that everything that she told me, like, was what I went through, but she wasn't even with him as long as I was. And to this day, she's remarried and everything, is dealing with psychological issues behind this person.
Wow. I wonder why this isn't a crime.
It is. It should be a crime. I mean, it says it on the record, psychological, but this should be like more of a crime.
Yeah.
Like up there with the physical, because it is just pure evil. Kelly, and they know very well you are valuable. Exactly. And they don't want others to see you shine. They know, and they don't feel that within. So you're being punished, especially for those that have been abused in their past. You're being punished for what other people have done to them. Like, I totally see that we are the scapegoat. Why else would they feel like we would get that treatment or we deserve that? Like, no, we're not perfect, but I would tell you that I've done nothing to deserve the type of stuff that I experienced.
Nope.
There's not anything anyone could ever do to, like you said, unless you go out and kill somebody's mom, or I don't know, but if that's the case, you'd be in prison. Look at some other questions, because I know we've been on here a while.
And I'll probably jump off in a little bit to feed this little person.
Sorry,
this whole live. No, it's fine. I'm enjoying myself.
When you free yourself, absolutely. I believe that when someone loves you, they shouldn't be trying to change everything about you. It becomes like they're supposed to. Well, that's the thing, Tina. They cannot love. They cannot.
Yeah.
They don't have that mechanism in the brain, the frontal lobes. They don't have that mechanism, so they do not love. They cannot love. People are means to their end. They don't love themselves. They can't.
I love what you can do for me. I don't love you.
Does the family know about his behavior? We'll talk about that online. Families enable this kind of behavior.
That's gonna be, I think that's our next video.
That's gonna be that's our. We have content for 52 weeks, so probably over 52 weeks, because we don't have enough time to talk about. There's not enough time in the world. We have content over a year long for each week about all the details of this. So that would be a whole nother thing. Sorry that you had to experience this. I by far have not been perfect. In a younger age, I have some insecurities. Even today, I'm still growing. I think I'm a narcissist, especially if you put up the chart. And that's one thing, Stephanie, you're not a narcissist. If you can tell me that you think you're a narcissist, you're not. And so
you're already not one.
Issues resolved, because a narcissist will never say I'm a narcissist at all. So
you deserve it. In fact, they would probably be angry that we would be doing this video.
Exactly. So y'all can screenshot all this and send it to them. But you are contributing to our further abuse if you do this. Most of the time their families do, but they were disregarded. Exactly.
The family knows who they are. And then I know in my situation, I was even told, well, I thought he had changed when he decided to get married. They know.
The families know.
They know. But they're not going to support you either. Well, they might, but they're not in my.
Taking the cover off of some of this, because the families sometimes try to intervene, but they don't even know, like, that. But when you try to tell them what's really happening, and they start to see like what it really is, I think you start tapping into their dysfunction,
Yeah, because they in some way attributed to this, or they contributed to
Period.
this.
But that's like I said, that's a whole nother video.
Yeah, that's
And
how we have a lot of
I'm not gonna say I blame them, period, but they definitely have a hand in it if it's based on childhood experiences. So I'll just say that.
And just really quickly, Shay.
Enabling their toxic family members.
Yep.
Period. Thank you, Kelly. Exactly. Yes.
Because I remember telling some of the dirty stuff to this person's family member and them being appalled. And I'm thinking, finally, someone who gets it, only to later be in a group chat telling me why I should take this person back. So they know.
They don't get it. And I can't even begin to tell you, because this is just surface stuff, really.
Yeah.
Like, if you think this is horrific, but the things that we've been talking about, we can't even tell you some of the things.
Yeah, this is very surface. We tried to make it a little bit light. I said we tried to make it a little bit light by making it in a happy hour.
Right. And plus, I think that, we're able to laugh about some of this now, but what no laughing. I mean, this is not, first of all, it's not a laughing matter, but because we are healing and continuing in our process, therapy, and all those different things, we're able to come and educate and build awareness, because first of all, we don't want this happening to anybody else. But now we have a voice. We've been silenced for so long.
Right.
That it feels good to have a voice.
And they need to be exposed. And if I can help one person recognize a red flag and prevent this from happening to them, then I feel like I've done a great job. Because I wish I would have known before. I wish I would have had some idea before. So that's my whole goal. And that's why we've created a YouTube page. And every week we put content on there to educate on exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And I'm going to put that, we'll put the link in the comments for our Facebook page. This is not easy, so continue to lift us up as we try to do this. I think we started off, we did one video and I had to stop because it's very difficult to tell your trauma story.
While you're dealing with trauma.
While you're still dealing with some of it. But thankfully we're safe. Physically we're safe. And but no, the healing process is very detailed. So yeah, keep us in your thoughts, keep us in your prayers. But if there's any topics that you want to hear about, if you want to us to answer questions at the next one, please put them in the comments. We'll try to put our email and our YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. My name on Instagram is at A Very Dangerous Woman, and Paula.
And I'm at Soul Survivor 20, and we'll put that also in our description.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you, Z. She said, you always are holding space for us, but for me. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. We hope that you were edified from this. We hope that you will, give us your feedback. Tell us maybe some things that we can expound upon a little bit more. I think the dialogue is extremely important. I think awareness is extremely important. I think that if you have family members or you yourself is dealing with something like this, educate yourself. We can send you dozens and dozens of resources, hundreds of resources, books, videos about what helped us through. I am 6 months now into this thing as far as the no contact goes, but as far as the as far as the educating, like I feel like I should have a degree I do have the degree, but I should have a certificate in this specialization at this point. So if I can help you in any way, I know that if Paula can help you in any way, we will walk you through it.
Yes, and I'm 2 months into physically leaving, so it's still pretty new to me, but in the 2 months I've been gone, I've grown so much, and a lot of that is with the support of Shay and all the education. She'll send me materials, YouTube, everything you can think of. And it's like day by day, you start to feel your old self coming back, and then a new self, because you can't quite be the same after you go through something like that. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We've never went live, so this is pretty cool.
It was, and y'all see I was all blotchy and red, but I guess
You look great. You look great.
Girl, my chest was red. I don't know, but I'm not blush anymore. But no, thank you. You guys be safe. Stay out of crowds. Don't get the Rona.
Wash your hands.
What'd you say?
I said wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands. Stay at home. You see, we're at home. We're comfortable. I hope too much wasn't showing, but yeah. Let us know what you think. Stay connected. That's one of the things that I've been preaching during this time. You know, we have social media. Stay connected to one another. Let's FaceTime. Let's watch Netflix together. Let's love on each other. Let's not let people get into deep depressions while they're hibernating. Let's go through this thing together. So.
All right.
All right.
You said it perfectly. That's all I have to say.
Bye. Love y'all.
Bye.